Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for being here today, Minister. My question to you is, going back to the formation of this piece of legislation, what were the issues that you identified from the previous regime regarding the types of vaping products which led you to make the changes that you're making today?
I think the big challenge that we've had and was recognised was that we've had progressive tweaks and adjustments regarding the types of products that we're using, and it takes a bit of time for the industry to respond, and those sort of things that we're creating a bit of a lack of clarity. And I think we just needed to be a lot simpler and a lot stronger around what products were in and what products were out, so that moving forward both enforcement is clarified, but also that we have a very strong position around the types of products that young people have access to, and we want to make sure that we've got a very strong line around making sure that the product as a cessation tool remains available as it's been useful for those quitting smoking, but ensuring that the legislation was clear around it, that we weren't going to end up with further tweaks to the process, that we had a very strong position, and that's very keen to hear the Select Committee's report back on what that final solution will be.
And just to follow up to that, thanks, Mr. Chair, what impacts are you anticipating around the product changes?
Well, I think the strong thing is to get the product that is most attractive to young people off the market, and that's really simplifying what's available on the market and ensuring that we can make enforcement a lot clearer and simpler.
Which products?
I think that's the real target, is to get the most used products that young people are using off the market, and ensuring we have tight controls over what can be sold, and particularly a penalty regime that is a much stronger deterrent. So that as the enforcement ramps up, we can be sure that we're holding those accountable for breaching those regulations.
Yeah, that's full of
shit. That's full of shit. So we now know that the enforcement regime is not an enforcement regime as such, because neither the minister nor I think it was the Prime Minister were aware that heated tobacco products that were enforceable were still being sold to people that it shouldn't have been sold to. So the first thing is she's completely not on top of her portfolio, but that doesn't matter, because in the Patsy question from her colleague from New Zealand First, Jenny Marcroft.
No. On Zoom it says she was called Jennifer.
Okay. Yeah, that changes everything.
And my apologies to the man in blue, I think, on the couch sitting behind here. I'm sorry. I don't mean to offend anybody, although I believe that New Zealand First, because I can't believe that they were Ministry of Health officials sitting behind her in her office. They must be within her own.
You're going to have someone there to throw under the bus. She's probably the door.
Yeah, let's throw the blue jacket guy under.
Yeah, we'll just throw him under the bus.
But the first thing is the double narrative of this government, which is we're cleaning up the mess of the previous government, because they were only ever doing things in piecemeal and in stages.
And not to mention that the Smokefree data said that under Labour, smoking was already going down for all ethnic groups.
Yeah.
So what mess are you cleaning up?
Well, that's right. And then the other narrative is that is simply the cost of it all.
Yeah,
and we're here to clean up Labour's big mess from the last. Well, I hate to say it, but I mean, I'm old enough to recall the Kirk government coming in '74, I think it was, and having to clean up a mess, or the Longy government in '84 having to clean up a whoever mess. So this narrative, and this is the conditioning thing I mentioned in the last rant, which is the New Zealand public have also become conditioned to now not believe National when they say we're better at managing the economy than the last lot. So I think what's interesting is that this whole process over heated tobacco products. So let's be really clear here. Not only is she full of shit and doesn't have the evidence to back it up, independent of her little mates in the tobacco industry.
That's right.
And that's just calling it like it is.
She hasn't cited any studies or anything like that.
I can certainly say this. I get people who come up to me and go, so you voted National at last election? I go, no, I didn't. I gave my electoral vote to Julian Genter because she had the better shot to win against the Labour candidate. And I gave my party vote to Top, and that throws people completely off. And I said, I've got no interest in voting National. They say they can run a business, but when they sit there and keep showing me the things that are in there, they're the quicker way to sit there and crash a business from what they've described. And this is before this current lot started doing what they were doing.
I was going to say, they know how to run a business from the ground.
People like me, who see through the bullshit, right?
Well, see, and this is the issue that you've got, team. And dealing in evidence is not something that this lot are necessarily familiar with. Even when the evidence doesn't back up what you. Well, I mean, actually, you don't go out in public and talk about shit if you don't have the evidence to back it up, and that's the important lesson here. And you certainly don't leave a paper trail behind you that looks like you're in Red Riding Hood. I think it is. Well, no, what are those two kids that went to the gingerbread house?
Yeah, Hansel and Gretel.
Hansel and Gretel. There you go. Hansel and Gretel. Drop the breadcrumbs to get yourself.
It's a shame we don't have SNL, because SNL could do an absolute good clip about Hansel and Gretel and make Casey Costello the smoking gingerbread tobacco house.
But I think
she can be the witch in the story.
But I think, Sam, you raised a really important point about the people having voted for Julian Genter or Top or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not for a moment suggesting that people only vote homogeneously, if that's even a word, because we stopped doing that for a long time. Māori, for example, are not a single homogenous voting group. We don't all vote for Te Pāti Māori. We don't all vote for Labour. Sadly, some of us vote for either National or New Zealand First. Some vote for the Greens. Some vote for ACT.
There were some very good Māori candidates. The one in Tamaki Makaurau, who's standing for National, I think would have made a brilliant MP. Was it Hinarera Tihau?
Yeah, Hinarera. I know Hinarera really well. She's smart, academically inclined, and intelligent. The problem that National have with people like that is that they're too smart for their own good.
Yeah.
And so, is that a tail? my dog's causing havoc down the other end of the house.
It is a tail indeed.
I've got a Shiba Inu, a little puppy, a Japanese hunting dog called Hana-chan. Hana is the Japanese word for flower, and chan being the Japanese word for girl. And she's just had her operation, and at first I thought the cone of shame was hilarious, but it wore off pretty quickly, completely off topic. But what I'm trying to say, Sam, is that, the other thing that's gone on, sadly, is with the younger vote, the rangatahi vote, youth vote. And that is that these days, whereas they may not have turned out to vote because they were disenfranchised or disconnected from the system, somehow a large number of them thinking that liking a Facebook post is akin to walking into the voting booth and casting a ballot. And the problem with that is the growth of both influencers and what we now call content creators and all these sorts of things who themselves by their very nature are not loyal. I mean, once the TikTok trend is over and another platform emerges, they'll go to that one. And so it is actually quite hard for people like us or me to keep up voting trends as we could do in the olden days. But, again, I come back to the point, it would be useful to have these sorts of discussions about our future arrangements, what does a constitution look like, and all of these different things, than waste nearly $4 million. By the way, it wasn't going to cost anything on a select committee process on the treaty principles bill, because old mate from old Epsom, who did a dodgy deal with National and Paul Goldsmith, but not really, don't look here, has this vendetta. Who can somebody please tell me who was mean to David Seymour at school? I
don't know. Someone must have thrown him to the locker really hard.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't advocate people watching The Vampire Diaries like I've got a sad life. But it's like he's in some rom-com teenage series from Netflix on vampires, werewolves, or vagabonds.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Sorry.
I've had this said to me at 2-part kindergarten where more than half the staff are Māori, and they go like, who stole his lunch at school? They're the kindergarten that has said, if David Seymour turns up, the red carpet gets rolled up and put away in the office.
Yeah, David, I don't think was offered doughboys at lunchtime.
No.
I think David is miffed that he wasn't offered the doughboys. I reckon he was miffed that he didn't get a decent pork bone from the pot. and didn't like it anyway, and was grated at the fact that there was no sushi on offer.